Welcome everybody to the Creative Block. I'm truly honored today to have Jacqueline Elyse Rosenthal on the show. Jacqueline is a talented filmmaker and DGA Award-winning writer and director. She holds an MFA in film production from USC School of Cinematic Arts and is the recipient of the prestigious John Huston Award for Outstanding Directing. Jacqueline is currently in post-production with her sci-fi short film Europa, created for the Entertainment Technology Center at USC in partnership with Sony Pictures and other industry leaders. The film utilizes cutting-edge virtual production technology, also known as the volume wall, to explore humanity's impact on the universe and nature. She is one of the few women pushing the boundaries of this revolutionary production technique. With a passion for thought-provoking and deeply personal storytelling, Jacqueline is also a leader in advancing innovative filmmaking methods such as these. Thank you, Jacqueline, for being on the show. I really appreciate you making the time. You and I met, a while ago, and here at ATC actually, and you were telling me back then about your film Backlog, dealing with the serious issues of untested rape kits, and so that was a really important project, I would imagine, from your perspective. What was the hope of the impact of that film for you?
Thanks for starting with Backlog, Vince, because honestly, that was really a interesting experience for me personally. It was a film I was very close to, and talk about an interesting time to be able to work with someone you look up to. It's based on someone's real life. I had never done the biopic kind of film before, and I've stayed away from documentaries because I'm so worried about respecting the truth and what people's experiences are, especially if they're going to watch a film based on reliving these moments of their lives. You want to make sure that you do it with integrity, you get it right. So when I set out to make Backlog, I knew there was no way I could make this film without Valerie Newman. And she's the woman that the film is based on. She's become a really close friend. But I just couldn't make it without someone who had lived this experience and had, become such a voice for so many women. So many times people ask me questions about the film, and truthfully, I wish I could just hand over an invisible mic to Valerie, because when you hear her talk about her experience with the rape kit backlogs, it's just, she knows so much about it. As a filmmaker, your job is to bring the emotion and the, craft a story that is as real as possible. And in this particular experience, I am a survivor too. A lot of my friends at USC are survivors, and that's what was the impetus of making this film for me, because their kits were not tested. And so it just felt like, well, this is very familiar feeling 10 years later in my life. I'm a little bit older, so hopefully wiser. And so I thought, I think this is the time I can try to tackle this. However, it was really interesting. Valerie Newman, was the key witness in the Senate hearing to end the backlog in 2010. So, it's been a little bit of time for her too since that experience. And so I think our main point of the film was this: we need to test these kits immediately. There's always government funding floating around, especially with this. There was I think it was like $115 million to test the kits. And it was just sitting there. There was no one appointed to enforce the spending of the money. And so really we were trying to shine a light on, I think that's my job as a filmmaker, is to shine a light on these systemic issues that don't really get addressed, and hopefully doing it through a way where we fall in love with the person that is going through this journey, and we see ourselves in them, or we see, a mother, a friend in them. And I hope that was what the impact on people was. I find it's really interesting. We had a very, intense impact on the audiences in film festivals. And I found it really interesting that like 50% of the population obviously is male. And the men were more upset at what I mean, it's not that interesting. I'm not surprised. The men were more upset at this, like really outraged, and they would sit in their seats just staring at the screen while everybody was filing out of the theater. They would just sit there, and they'd come and talk to me after and ask me, like, does this really happen? And the women were not surprised at all. They were obviously they felt seen, and they were happy that this film exists, and this hopefully movement, because we're making a feature of it too. So we want to get this globally as far as it can get. So yeah, it just was interesting that how society reacted to the film.
I think that when I look at creatives like you, I'm really inspired because, it takes a lot of courage and bravery. And I think about you as an individual and what this might mean. The impact is good, of course, but, you being at the center of it, you fielding questions, and not everybody's nice and not everybody's understanding, and I'm sure that has been your experience too. And I am really empathetic for the amount of stress, even though that this is a good thing, that it probably piles on you. So my heart breaks for you a little bit, because I imagine even as far as you want to take this is probably pretty difficult for you at the same time.
It's funny that you say that, Vince, because I don't think I'm allowed to really say it yet, but we just placed on a screenwriting list that's going to get released, which I'm really grateful for. And it basically it's similar to the blacklist. It's not the blacklist, but it goes out to the industry. And so my reps have encouraged me, hey, take another stab at the script and make sure it's good, because people are going to start asking for it. And I was just sitting there in a coffee shop rereading the script, and it's hard for me to read it because it's so real, and there are certain moments where it's only a sentence. It can be something as small as in the feature, she's a dancer, and once this happens to her, she loses her balance. Like she just doesn't want to dance anymore. And there's this line about her finally falling to the ground, and I just hate writing it, and I hate seeing it, but that's why I think it is going to probably hit home for a lot of people. But yeah, I think that the experience of really trying to relive it and remember it, I have to just really, I think all artists are this way to a certain degree, whether you're a painter or whatever, but you have to kind of take a step back. And you hit the nail on the head, Vince, because I've been dragging my feet for that rewrite, because I just know once I'm going to start it, it's going to kind of seep back in. But I don't know. I'm really lucky because I have a really supportive group of people behind me that I can call. I'm really close to my parents, and I can just pick up the phone and talk to them too if I am in the weeds with the reliving the experiences. But honestly, that's the hardest part, is because as a director, you're usually really visual. So I feel like I'm there seeing it happen to this person over and over again. So that can be a little challenging, but I don't know. I'm really grateful that over the years I've gotten experience from some good mentors on how to do this kind of separation. If not, I don't know how anybody does this. Yeah.
Yeah, it's pretty incredible. And we make things and then we put them out in the world and we hope it gets press and attraction, and that's you almost probably, a part of you doesn't want to say anything, you know what I mean? But it's but I understand that it's really important and people need to know and understand, and even for the people that don't think this is a problem or don't think it needs to be talked about, you're doing incredible work by putting this out there and getting champions for it. So it's really, I'm just so impressed by your courage, because it's really, pretty amazing.
I don't think I'll truly be happy until the bill passes where the kids get tested. That's the hard thing, is I don't feel like I've achieved anything. I think a lot of activist filmmakers feel that way. In
Yeah.
fact, when the film gets good press, I feel really bad sometimes because I want to redirect them away from me into the cause. So that's
Yeah.
been like, this is I'm still pretty young, so this is my first kind of go at these things, and understanding like how it all works and being okay with that, and how all the puzzle pieces fit together. But I am happy because I've been able to meet with a few senators, and they really care, and they almost need our art as a vehicle to reach people. So
Yeah.
it's just the impact producers. If you're anyone like me, if you're like a younger person watching this and you want to know how to use your art for good, really an impact producer is just so helpful. And sometimes they'll work pro bono. You have to work hard to find one. They're as important as as your producer in production. But yeah, their entire job is to help use your film for impact and find the place that it should land. And distribution and impact is equally as important as what you're making, because you want to make sure people can see it. So yeah, that's been the guiding light, is an impact producer. I would encourage any filmmaker to donate your film to them. Maybe you won't get any money for it, but it's not about that. Like, really, once you see how these things are affecting other people, like, we've done a couple impact screenings, and I get the messages, and they're so profound, and so that's like 10 times worth any sort of financial thing.
Let's talk about production a little bit. You're a writer, director, producer. When you're in the thick of a movie like or Europa, for example, which is really funny because I first learned about Europa reading Arthur C. Clarke.
Oh,
Like, I
really?
think it was
No
2010.
way.
Like,
Yeah, yeah,
he
yeah.
has his
Yeah.
second book. He talks about the possibility of life on Europa, and I remember
Yeah.
diving into that book, and I'm like, life on a moon of Jupiter? That doesn't make any sense. Like, oh, it's full of water. It's full of liquid water. That's amazing. So I was
Yeah.
excited to see your story being placed there on a moon of Jupiter. But when you
Oh.
have all of these, how do you approach production when you can do all these things, right? Because it's a kind of a challenge not to be pulled in so many different directions that you're not effective. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
what does that look like for you?
So first up is get a great creative producer. That person for me was Ting Ting Liu.
Hmm.
She is a student at USC, graduated, amazing. So she was my partner from day one on this, because I truthfully wanted to be able to focus on the story, but also, you don't want to be the only voice in the room in the script. Every writer is different, so take this with a grain of salt. Really, truthfully, if this isn't your vibe, that's okay. But I think it's really helpful to have someone who you like their films as well. It's really important that you like their projects, who thinks kind of similarly to you. Be able to be a sounding board, because you can be so attached to what you're writing and just miss some things. And Ting Ting had really great notes, not from a line budget production or that producer standpoint. She was having notes more from the creative standpoint. Sorry, my dog is here with me.
Oh,
Um,
tell us about the dog real quick because it's really important. You adopt,
yeah,
we just had
this is
devastating wildfires and you adopted or
this
you're
is
you're
yeah.
fostering.
This is my confused senior dog right here. I had to keep him on my lap because the foster dog is behind me sleeping. They kind yeah. I'm fostering a dog that's laying right here. Um, she's really sweet. She's up for adoption. She may have met her forever home already, but we're not sure. So if you want to adopt a dog, she was displaced during the fires, and she is incredible. She's so sweet. Her name's Truffle. She's a 6-month-old puppy. So my first time with a puppy. So this has been a week, but she is wonderful. So a senior and a puppy
We'll
all together.
we'll put those links on the show. Make sure people
Thank
can
you.
find
Thank you.
find out where Truffle can be adopted.
She's great. But yeah, back to work. Yeah, I think a good creative producer, and then that person enables you to, like, you already have that relationship with them where you can kind of decipher, like, having a shorthand with someone that you're close to that's going to be on set for the whole production is just really valuable. So that was day one, and then really with writing and directing, I just feel like this particular film was a good lesson. Very good lesson for me of how to, think big, but then know how to kind of constrain it in a way where it is actually shootable. Initially, the script, it started with 4 pages and then it ended up becoming 11. And I think we could have filmed a 4-page version of this and been okay.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of people said, oh, let's add this scene, and then let's add this scene, and let's add these elements and these worlds. And they were great. But in the edit, we didn't necessarily, I watched it and I thought, we didn't necessarily need that. So I think it was a matter of really learning your style and learning what's going to be cut in the hit the cutting room floor. That's really the biggest 2 ways to juggle it, because that is my producer hat too, is, hey, how am I going to get this to people in a digestible way while retaining the message of the story, which is me as a director, and also, have them invested in a character arc, so writer. So they are kind of all, I always shoot for edit. And I think that I started as an editor. I was an editor for Christina Pascucci. She's a KTLA newscaster. She is
yes, I know.
Yes, I used to work for her, and so that's how I kind of got my start. As I was editing for her, and I loved it. And she's such an amazing boss and collaborator. And I realized she had all this great footage, and it was really stressful for me, because how am I going to incorporate all these places? She's a world-renowned traveler as well. How am I going to incorporate all these moments and her trips into one segment? And it just felt like, I don't know, when you start as an editor and you have all this footage, you just start to learn how to craft a story. One day, hopefully, I get to do documentaries now that I'm not afraid of true stories, because I just feel like it's just such a beautiful craft to, you're striving to find truth in something that doesn't necessarily start with a script. Well, doesn't start with a script. So, I think that's how I want to approach all of my productions now. I have one in development called Gaslight, and that one is really interesting because everyone wants to know the exact steps of the script and what's the midpoint reveal, what's this, and I really want to find that with the actors in filming, which is not traditional. But it's kind of real, and you don't know what can come out of that. So I don't think there's a guidebook, and I'm really grateful that there isn't. There's a million books you can read, but I really think it's like anything else. David Lynch was one of my favorite filmmakers, and I've been reading all his quotes, and such beautiful statements about creating your own path and just doing your own thing, and he was such a good example of that. So I think as a writer, director, producer, nobody is a writer, director, producer. I don't even put producer on there because I don't want to intimidate people by being like, I also used to edit and act. I just say writer, director. But everyone on set, like on the team, I'm realizing after I think being a good director means you can learn everybody else's job to a tiny degree. And after doing these other roles, like we're all kind of doing the same thing. We're all trying to tell a good story.
Yes.
It's just packaged differently. Do you like to be in an office with a blazer doing it? Or do you want to be like out in the boonies, like covered in sand and sleep deprived doing it? Like, blue
it's
pill, red
totally
pill.
True. So let's talk about Europa. This production happened in front of the virtual wall, and for those who don't know what the wall is, give us a brief description of that.
Sure. So in a soundstage, there's this LED screen, massive LED screen, and so there's tiny little LED screens that connect to create this huge kind usually like curved. Sometimes it depends which volume you use, but curved or flat wall. So it really feels like a backdrop, except I'm going to talk in it in terms where anyone can understand this. So it's kind of like almost a backdrop, except this backdrop is programmed with, we used Unreal Engine, so a video game software where you can go in and actually move your backdrop to do anything you want, track to the camera. So now you have all this room to play, and with us, you custom build what you put into this, they call it virtual world. So the volume supports these very interactive kind of experiences where you really do feel like you're there, and it's based, it's projected on the technology, or projected on the wall through the technology. So there's something called a brain bar where all these operators help make sure that the wall is doing what you need it to do. Yeah, so you can custom build these virtual worlds exactly how you had it in your head with your team, so that when you get there, you already can have experienced what it's like with a virtual session. I'm getting into the weeds now, but you already
No, that's totally fine. That's perfect. And in fact, when I first learned about it, I was so impressed that you could program the lights, you could program the camera, so when the audience sees this, it's not just a fancy green screen, it's this almost living, breathing thing that talks to everything on set, and it's really impressive. I think, you showed me clips of your film, and, looks like you're there. I mean, it's just super
Oh,
cool.
thank you.
It's really, really amazing to see, and, your ability to correctly expose practical actors, virtual wall, programming the lights, all of that stuff. It's, the end result is super impressive. So,
I can't take
congratulations.
credit for that. That's my DP Wolfie and my production designers Anran and Kristen. Like, they're incredible.
Yeah.
And we had an entire team. We worked with Pixel and Sony, and just the aperture lights were amazing too. Like, we had a lot of hands helping to make that possible.
Right.
Like, it was incredible. But the accurate exposure is one of the most challenging things to kind of get right, especially when you're filming somewhere that no one's physically been to. So you're trying to guess, hey, are we on the dark side of the moon? Are we not? And there's all these questions that factor in. Plus, it's this Europa where it felt like we filmed there. It felt like we filmed on Europa. Like, it was very real, which is crazy. That's why I
Yeah.
love virtual production. There's an element of it where you start to forget that you're not really there, and that's what I wanted everybody on set to feel, and that's what I want people to feel when they watch the film. Someone watched it and they said, "How did you film up on a moon?" And I was so happy.
That's a great response.
I won't tell you who that was because they'd be just so embarrassed that they asked that question. But yeah, it was really interesting. It felt really tied into right when we started post. I went to go see Take Me to the Moon, the film with Scarlett Johansson and Channing Tatum, and I saw it, and I remember thinking, this is such a strange parallel to us making this film right now, because they were trying to stage that in a sound stage where it looked like they actually went to the moon, and then they had the real moon footage, and they couldn't tell which one was real in one of the scenes. And I remember thinking, I would be so blessed one day to have them, have some sort of camera on Europa, and then have a camera on our virtual production stage and say which one's real. Would just be so thrilling. Yeah. But I do
It's
have
cool.
mixed feelings about us going to Europa too. So maybe not Europa, maybe somewhere else. But it is pretty interesting how the two, you can make anything real in virtual production if you try hard enough, which is
Yeah.
crazy to me. Yeah,
It's crazy. And I don't know if you've tried on any of the Apple goggles or anything like that, but that
yeah,
technology is going to go too, and it's going to be on beyond flat screen. You're going to be in it. And so
yeah.
for somebody like you, that's going to require another level of production, another level of shooting, different kinds of cameras to make all that believable. But we're so close to that. It's kind of nuts.
I want that. I want to get my hands on that stuff and really see what direction we can go, because I think oftentimes, not necessarily filmmakers, but for whatever reason, there's a misunderstanding with this technology of with virtual production too, of hey, like how many new things we can try, when really its biggest skill for a director like me and for so many, I think that virtual production is for auteur directors. I really think it is, because we love the ability to see it exactly how it was in our head and change the landscape to match that, when you can't do that when you're on a physical set. You can't control the sun. You can't. You actually can say, hey, there's supposed to be a star right there, right above the actress's head, so that it lens flares behind her eye, and we can feel like extremely romantic in this moment. Then you can, you don't have to shift an entire team and try to make it possible and then do it in VFX. You just do it. So you program it, and just for anyone watching who doesn't know a lot about virtual production, you can add that in within a matter of like a couple minutes. You need to make sure you give your team time to do it, but that's like the best case scenario, is you add it in. Maybe it's even quicker, and yeah, I just want to shout out a couple of people on the Pixo team: Dan Lazarow, Troy, Emmanuel, Renee Hernandez was just amazing at being able to do these things so quickly. Yeah, I'm forgetting someone, which I'm going to be really mad at myself.
Just send me all of them, and I'll put them in the show notes.
But yeah, it was crazy. They did it. They did it so quickly, and it was just
I know. It's pretty fantastic when you find that level of software operation. It's always really super impressive.
I hope that, and I think that it's going to get into the hands of the newer generation, and we should get it into their hands.
Yeah. And speaking of that, I would imagine in your life as you go through production, you are being approached by, young students or young filmmakers. What has that experience been like for you, and what are you feeling from them about what they're interested in creating?
Yeah. Oh, interesting. Let's see. Because I have a lot of mentees. Very grateful that they're, it's so funny because I want to tell them, oh guys, I was you, like not that long ago. You can do this too, and I hope that inspires them, because it should. I really feel like the most questions I've gotten are, how do I start doing this, and what kind of story should I be telling? I get that a lot too. And it's the same thing every time. Like, it really, you never know when an opportunity is going to come along. Like, I did not even expect to do this one. It was really caught me by surprise, and I'm so grateful I made Europa. And it really is just a matter of being open to the possibilities of what might be out there. And if you really love a certain technology and you feel like, oh, I wish I knew more about it, there are a million demo shows and conventions and they seem really expensive, but if you wait, or if you find someone on LinkedIn and you ask them for a code, sometimes you can get in for free, or you can get a massive discount. So and I think young people
start a podcast and you get a press pass.
Or do that. See, there's always a way to make it happen, and there's a smart way to make it happen. And to all my young people out there who are excited doing this and are excited to do this and really want to pursue this, like you have to make it for yourself, and you can make it happen for yourself, and you can. It's just go out there and meet the right people and just talk to them and ask them the same questions that you guys ask, the questions that are asked to me of how do I do this, because I might not be the best person to help get you that opportunity. I can tell you how I got the opportunity, but I can tell you what I learned from it. But really, it's asking the people who are running the tech and understand the tech that are going to be great, and then just share with them your interest in making something, and offer a script for free. That's what I always did. I was gonna say do, but that student debt. I gotta be real. But that's what I always did, is I offered scripts for free and things for free, just to try to get to show people what I wanted to make and see if they needed to use it. A lot of these companies need scripts. A lot of these companies need stories that they can test things on their wall. You're not necessarily going to get paid for the script, but that's okay, because then they're going to make it and they can hand that back to you, and now you have that credit. So I highly recommend finding out who the newer volume stages are. There's every day it feels like there's a new one, and they're not all in the US. They're
Right.
It's a very global enterprise. So
Yep.
I got in touch with one in Thailand, and we're talking, and they're amazing. So you never know, and reach out to those ones that might not have the easy accessibility to Hollywood.
That's right.
Hey, I'm always willing to do any job on set. I feel like it's all about the people you're meeting, and you really never know when your next, as a writer or director, you never know when your next job's going to come up. It never is from where you expected it to, ever. You could be like, oh, I'm so ready to make this thing. You're not going to make it for 5 years, because this other thing randomly is now your whole world and you love it. So I just think, but where it comes to virtual production, though, because I'm obsessed with this field,
Mm-hmm.
I think it's just the most beautiful tool for a filmmaker. It's so underutilized. I want to do anything I can to make people realize how special it is.
Yeah.
Because it really is special, and the experience. Someone told me, "Oh, Renee," he told me, my job is going to be to make you forget that you're filming in a volume. That's when you're going to realize, like, you're really there." And it's crazy. There are places, guys, you cannot film. You can't go there. I wanted to film at the Senate steps for Backlog. I tried. I sent them so many requests for a permit, and they're like, "We never take permits. It's sorry, we just don't do it." Well, I'm going to film I'm going to project the Senate, and I'm going to build some steps, and that's how I'm going to film that scene with virtual production. That's the only way I could ever film that scene. So it's really it's really an underutilized tool for locations that you can't get permits for. The list is endless, but the key is making sure that it's not about only pushing what's seen in that. It's making it feel very real and realistic.
Yeah. So let's talk about Europa a little bit in the theme of this
Yeah.
movie, because, I would imagine you saying that you have mixed feelings about actually going there, and that's because we're going to leave Starbucks cups on the surface of Europa. So why were you attracted to this theme of this short?
By the way, Vince, that was in a first draft of the script. There was like a
Was it
candy
really?
wrapper. There was a candy wrapper left behind. So thank you.
That's what we do.
Yeah, exactly. You got the message really, really well. I feel like us as humans don't always think about the fact that nature was here a lot longer than us. And, this week has been very startling for me, working so heavily on this film that's about global warming and climate awareness to a huge degree. And the message and kind of a B plot of the film. The A plot is they're there to, get this water from the surface of Europa, and that's their mission. But the B plot is really strong, is like, okay, that's their mission, but in essence, what have we done to our own planet that we've made it so bad that we have to go to these other planets and moons to try to have a survival plan. So that really, there are certain scenes in Europa. There's a clip that is verbatim from one of the fires that was in California. It was the Woolsey fire. It's in the film, and she basically has this moment, and this is a bit of a spoiler, but it's okay because it's a film about climate awareness, and anyone who's going into a film knowing that knows that this is probably going to be in there. So hopefully it's not that much of a spoiler. But there's a moment where she has this come to Jesus moment, touching the water for the first time. And when she touches the water and she sees what is going to happen to, basically what's going to happen, what happened to Earth, what we've done to our own planet. And then she finds out that she's going to do the same thing to Europa. And I saw the Blue Origin video. Okay, we're going to go there. I saw the Blue Origin video a couple years. Yeah, I don't know when it was, but I think it was during COVID sometime. And, Jeff Bezos sent that rocket up with William Shatner, right? Yeah. And they landed, and William Shatner was so amazed by the experience, and he had so much humanity, and Jeff Bezos just wanted to pop the champagne in his face. And I was very scared because I want the future of humanity to be the William Shatners going up there. And I thought, no, it's just going to be Jeff. And that I was very aware of the 1% entering the conversation of how we're going to treat space. I've always been really aware of it, seeing Elon wear the Occupy Mars. We shouldn't be occupying anything. That's not the right phrasing. If that's the mentality that you put it on a shirt. So I was very aware that our future is not just on Earth. I don't think it is. And when it starts going other places, what does that mean? And who is going to control these conversations? In Europa, it's a private mission. And that's very beginning of the film. It says, thank you for being on the first private flight to Europa. And you just get this sense, and it's very subtle, but you get this sense kind of like Spielberg did with Isla Nublar, I think it's called, Jurassic Park. You got this sense that who is really running this place? Like, who is investing this money? And then you see, it's this man who thinks he's doing well. It's that little tiny old man who's sitting in, and he's so jovial and sweet, but he doesn't have answers when the scientists ask him the questions. That whole movie, they ask him, like, and what have you thought about if this happens? And he just says, let's go see this room. And it really feels... Yeah, and it really feels crazy because the more times I watch that movie, it's such like a subtle plot point, but it's the theme of the whole film of this subtle indifference to our decisions as humans when we can use science in the way that we want to use it, not in the way nature was intended to be used. And I do feel like that is the theme of Europa, of why is it like that there are so many climate deniers in this world when these things are happening. Like right now there was a flood in Bangladesh. Like all these things are happening. Yeah, maybe it seems like in the same week, but I hope that this doesn't continue to happen, but there needs to be some wake-up calls because there's so much money that the 1% has that they're not appropriating to these things. They're just thinking about going to another moon very far away. So I think it's priorities, I guess, is where, these ethical conversations are the reason why art is so powerful, I think, because we need to think about things. There are so many things that are not constructed well. Just because they've been done for however many years doesn't mean that's how it should keep happening, especially now with, ironically with technology and the ability to go to these places like Europa, because there's a mission that left October 2024. It's unmanned mission. You can't land there. But so these things are starting to happen, and tech is going to even take it closer to being able to happen. But we need to think like, okay, what role do we play in this, and how do we make sure we don't destroy that claim it as our own. We shouldn't be occupying anything.
Yeah. So what's with Europa? When can we see it? When's it going to come out? What can we expect?
Yeah, so the cool thing about it is there's actually two cuts of the film. So one is purely for tech, That's going to be used at demos, kind of demonstrations. It's shorter too, so it's more digestible. I believe it's about 10 minutes long. And then there's the one that we made with the story that was so kind. ETC has been amazing, and they've been making sure that we had the time and the resources to do it. So that one's the one with, I think it was 114 VFX shots. So it's quite insane. And I'm going to send you a clip of one of the scenes, but it's really that one's going to be going to festivals probably like this summer. So
Nice.
yeah, it depends. It depends on which one we end up premiering at. But that one, we hope to have a little screening just with cast and crew. But it's pretty crazy to like see it all the way through. And we had a lot of the animators from Game of Thrones work on it. There's
Cool.
a segment I'm going to send you that was actually animated by USC, a recent USC alumni from, I think from undergrad. He's an incredible VFX animator. His name's
Oh, cool.
Gordon. But yeah, Gordon Horowitz. And he made those shots so quickly and so well. Like I didn't really have to give him much direction actually. I gave him a couple notes about the style, but that's going to be this summer, and I'm so excited. It's so hard when you make a film and you can't just immediately share it. That's the worst part about it. But
Yeah, that's the system.
I
Well, that's really
know.
exciting. I guess my last question for you would be, do you have a sense of where this is going, right? Because here at SC, we have a volume wall, that it's flat.
Yeah.
You're seeing Amazon and Sony, and they're having, curved walls and ceiling and stuff like that. Do
Yeah.
you have a sense of like where this might be going in the next
Yeah.
couple of years with the technology?
Honestly, okay, so this is just going to be my hope for where it could go. I love the technologies, like the immersive, the fact that the Apple Vision Pro,
Yeah.
just you're there. It would be really interesting to see how far they will be able to integrate. I wanted, like, even in Europa, I wanted more Wonder style shots to feel like you'll see it in commercials a lot where sound stages will be rotating and things will move and the camera will
Yeah.
move through it. I think that virtual production could do that. I don't know if too many people have done this yet, but what I'm most excited about is maybe being able to have like the camera move out for a second into another room, almost like a whole film shot on a
Oh,
wall,
wow.
and just like cutting it in like pre-taped. I think that's what it needs to turn into. Um, you would save so much time. I don't know. I don't know what the other use cases for it would be, but if you could have the whole thing almost like theater, like doing these one shots rehearsed. A friend of mine just did a TV show that's gonna be at Sundance. It's a 30-minute oneer with a Steadicam, and that's the entire. It goes into all these different rooms, and it takes a lot of rehearsal. But I think virtual production can cut the scenes together, where you would have the cue actually go into a completely different location. And I think that would save a lot of money and time. And I think that the actors would actually prefer that, because as long as there's not a costume change and
Yeah.
there's a way to make sense of it, they would feel like, okay, this is, and when you're writing in screenwriting, you write continuous, or match cut to the like moments later. It would literally be that. So it would be really true. That would make it feel like a real location too. So if you had a way to pivot a set, I think it could add some live theater elements to make this like really a well-oiled machine. But there is a possibility for it to, you to be outside and then just press a button on the computer and then be inside someone's home. I don't know if I'm sure someone's done that. I'm sure they've done it, but I think going further in that direction is going to be really great. And bringing there needs to be another role added to virtual production. I noticed it's missing something. There needs to be like a virtual production bridge where it's like a person strictly who's done this so much, who's in the creative side and the tech side, who can be there to consult the director.
Huh.
because we're
For
going
the
to be
possibility, like,
yes,
yeah.
because we're going to be having more and more people. If we want more and more people to do this, which I do want more and more people to learn this skill, it's amazing. Then it needs to be like there's no clear. It's really hard as a director to find the clear ways to do this when you haven't done it a lot. And some of the bigger directors are not going to want to feel embarrassed, I think, to not know what they're doing on their own set. So having that bridge, whatever it's called, it needs to be there.
Well, you heard it here first. A new position opened up
I think so.
in this field.
I think so.
I love it.
The VP bridge.
I love it. I love it. Jacqueline, thank you so much for being and taking the time today. I really, really appreciate it. We tried this a few times, and I was really looking forward to this conversation and looking forward to what you create. And, you're truly, really inspiring. So wishing you all the best, and thanks again. And we'll talk soon.
Thank you, Vince. Bye, guys.
Oh, yeah.